Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down one of the most emotional aspects of Season 6, the story behind Nino's parents in the episode Chain Titans. Nino's parents really waited, 14, 15 years? However old Nino is, just to decide on their wedding money. Think about that for a second. Right after their marriage, they had this money and the plan was simple. They wanted to use it for their honeymoon. But even then, they already wanted completely different things. Nino's mom wanted to stay home and keep things calm, while his dad wanted to travel the world, go out and explore. And instead of reaching a decision, they just said, "We'll do it later." Later turned into years. Years turned into over a decade, and they still couldn't decide. That is actually crazy, because imagine living in a house where the same disagreement just keeps coming up over and over again for 14, 15 years. Nino must have heard so much, seen so much, constant arguments about the same thing, never getting resolved. I felt so sorry for Nino and his little brother. Chris, it must have been so hard living with them. No wonder Nino didn't want to encounter any sort of disagreement, not with girlfriends or his close friends. Despite everything happening at home, he still kept this calm, cheerful vibe, like nothing was wrong. And that's what made the Chain Titans such a powerful episode. You can tell the writers really put thought into it, especially in how they showed what kids go through when their parents are constantly arguing or separating. The episode started on a beautiful note, showing how marriages can begin with love and happiness. But even then, the differences were already there. His dad wanted adventure. Traveling, driving around, exploring places like Tokyo and Bangkok, while his mom preferred a quiet life at home. It actually mirrors Roland and Gina in a way, just flipped. Even when they were expecting a baby, those differences were clear. But love made them ignore it. That's why something as simple as their wedding money just sat there for years, unused because they couldn't agree on what to do with it. It really shows how unresolved disagreements can slowly stretch a relationship until it breaks. Then there's Nino and his headphones. At first, you'd think it's just about music and DJ vibes. But no, he uses music to block out the constant fighting at home. It was his own way of escape. And then there's Chris. He's so little, yet Nino has to be strong for both of them. They're going through it together, and it's honestly heartbreaking. Then the strawberries part. Nino doesn't even like them, but he forces himself to, just because Alia does. Why? Because he's scared of disagreement, scared that even the smallest conflict could turn into something like what his parents have. So instead of expressing himself, he just goes along with everything to keep the peace. That fear follows him everywhere. So when Adrian and Marinette suddenly start arguing over something that wasn't even important, Nino gets triggered. He's on edge, thinking, what if they end up like my parents? And that pushes him to act. And honestly, his solution was something I wasn't even expecting, but it did make a lot of sense. I really loved that scene where Marinette had to pretend like she was using the fox. Miraculous for the first time. The way she kept acting like she didn't fully understand it, while Alia patiently guided her. Teaching her how to use Mirage and everything was just so good. And Marinette played it perfectly. She was so excited, like a beginner hero experiencing it all for the first time, reacting to every little thing. And it's funny when you really think about it. This is someone who is literally the guardian of the miraculous. She has used almost every single miraculous, worked with different Kwamis and mastered their powers. Yet here she was, acting completely new to it and doing it so convincingly that nobody would ever suspect anything. Then there's that moment when they were flying over the buildings. That scene hit differently, because for the first time, it felt like they were truly superheroes together. Not as Ladybug and Cat Noir, but as Marinette and Adrian, two people who love each other and are fully aware of who they are behind the masks. There was something so pure and joyful about that moment. The way they leapt across rooftops, just enjoying being heroes side by side. It felt free. This is something they never really got to experience as Ladybug and Cat Noir. There was no burden of hiding their secret identity from each other. They were just happy, which makes it even more painful that the moment didn't last long. I really wish they had more time together like that. And then Ladybug's lucky charm. This time it was huge. Usually, we're used to seeing small random objects, but this one, it was massive. Even Ladybug herself was surprised. And when you think about it, it actually makes sense. They were up against massive villains, so of course, the solution had to match that scale. The last thing I want to talk about is the symbolism, because this episode did so well with that. The whole Titan situation, it was a perfect representation of what was going on with Nino's parents. You have the male Titan pulling in his own direction, the female Titan pulling in hers. Two completely different paths, but they're both chained, bound together because of that one disagreement, the wedding money. It kept them stuck in one place for years, tugging, pulling, going back and forth. never reaching a conclusion on how it should be spent. And in the process, they're hurting each other, pushing each other down, creating chaos, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. That's how much that one unresolved issue cost them. Then comes the turning point. The only real solution was when they both pulled against each other and chose to come together and unlock the chains that bound them. And that meant something. It symbolized that they were finally ready to make a decision, ready to settle what had been holding them back all these years. And when the chain finally dropped, they were no longer stuck. They were free. Free to move, free to choose their own direction, free from constantly arguing about that same wedding money that had been weighing them down for so long. Because in the end, that money wasn't just money. It was a chain, something that kept them from really living, from expressing themselves, from having peace. And when they let it go, everything changed. They went their separate ways. And that signifies the end of their marriage. I thought it was going to be rough for Nino and Chris. However, they were both happy, having the opportunity to explore the world with their dad and rest at home with their mom. That's the best of both worlds. And sometimes, even though divorce is tough, if both parties cannot agree and no one is willing to sacrifice for the other, then separation comes in for the sake of their happiness and for the kids. Nice episode, I must say. Make sure to like this video and subscribe.